In the beginning, when the world was still young and the gods roamed the earth with a sense of both authority and wonder, a darkness loomed on the horizon, threatening to engulf all that was sacred. It was a time when Zeus, the king of the gods, ruled Mount Olympus with thunderous might, his power unrivaled among the deities and mortals alike. Yet, from the depths of Tartarus, a monstrous being stirred, a creature so fearsome that even the bravest of gods trembled at the thought of confronting it. This creature was Typhon, the offspring of Gaia and Tartarus, a giant with 100 heads and serpentine limbs, each one capable of unleashing chaos upon the world. As Typhon awakened, the very earth quaked beneath his weight, and the skies darkened with the fury of his presence. He was a tempest of fury and destruction, a force of nature that sought to overthrow Zeus and claim dominion over the heavens. The winds howled in anticipation of the impending conflict, and the seas churned with rage as Typhon unleashed his wrath upon the world. The gods, once confident in their reign, began to fear for their very existence, whispering amongst themselves about the terrible fate that awaited them should Typhon succeed in his quest for power. Zeus, however, stood resolute, his heart ablaze with the determination to protect his realm. He summoned the other Olympians to a council, their faces etched with concern as they gathered around him, the air thick with tension. "We cannot allow this monster to prevail," Zeus declared, his voice echoing like thunder across the hall. "We must unite our strengths and confront Typhon before he brings ruin upon us all." The gods nodded in agreement, their resolve hardening in the face of the impending doom. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a crimson hue across the sky, Zeus prepared for battle. He donned his armor, crafted from the finest celestial materials, and took up his mighty thunderbolt, the symbol of his authority. With a fierce determination burning in his chest, he descended from Olympus, flanked by his loyal allies, ready to face the embodiment of chaos. The battlefield lay before them, a desolate expanse where the earth had been torn asunder by Typhon's rampage. The air crackled with energy, and the ground trembled beneath the weight of the monstrous Titan. Typhon stood tall, a fearsome sight, his 100 heads hissing and roaring, each voice a cacophony of terror. "Zeus!" he bellowed, his voice reverberating through the heavens. "Come forth and face your doom. I shall reclaim the throne of the gods and plunge the world into darkness." The clash of titans began, a monumental struggle that shook the very foundations of the earth. Zeus hurled his thunderbolt with precision, the bolt arcing through the air like a comet, striking Typhon with a blinding flash. The creature roared in pain, but his resilience was formidable. With a sweep of his serpentine tail, he retaliated, sending shockwaves through the ground that knocked Zeus off balance. The gods watched in horror as their king staggered, the tide of battle shifting ominously. As the battle raged on, Zeus found himself pushed to his limits. Typhon's ferocity was unlike anything he had ever encountered. Each of his heads unleashed a different elemental force: fire, ice, wind, and storm, creating a chaotic tempest that threatened to engulf Zeus. The skies darkened further, and the winds howled with the fury of 1,000 storms, as if nature itself conspired with Typhon against the king of the gods. Despite his strength, Zeus felt the weight of despair creeping into his heart. He had faced many foes before, but Typhon was unlike any adversary he had ever encountered. The ground beneath him was littered with the remnants of his allies, who had fallen in battle, their cries echoing in his ears. The realization that he might not emerge victorious began to gnaw at his resolve. In a moment of desperation, Zeus retreated to regroup, seeking solace in the wisdom of his father, Cronus, who had once faced similar challenges in his own reign. He closed his eyes and recalled the stories of old, tales of courage and cunning that had shaped the very fabric of existence. In those stories, he remembered a pivotal moment, a turning point that could alter the course of fate. He needed to harness not just his strength but the unity of the gods, their collective power against the overwhelming force of Typhon. With renewed determination, Zeus summoned the remaining gods to his side. "We must not fight as individuals," he proclaimed, his voice resonating with authority. "We must unite our powers, combine our strengths, and channel them into a single, unstoppable force." The gods, inspired by his words, nodded in agreement. They raised their hands to the sky, calling upon their divine abilities, each one contributing to a grand tapestry of power that swirled around Zeus. As the energy coalesced, a blinding light enveloped Zeus, transforming him into a beacon of hope and strength. He felt the surge of power coursing through him, a harmonious blend of elemental forces that amplified his own. With a roar that echoed through the heavens, he charged back into battle, his thunderbolt crackling with newfound intensity. Typhon, sensing the shift in power, unleashed a torrent of fury, his heads twisting and turning, each one spewing forth chaos and destruction. But Zeus was ready. He dodged and weaved through the onslaught, his movements fluid and precise. With a mighty swing of his thunderbolt, he struck Typhon with a force that shook the very foundations of the earth. The creature howled in agony, the sound reverberating through the air like a death knell. In that moment, the tide had turned. The gods rallied around Zeus, their collective powers amplifying his every strike. Together, they unleashed a tempest of divine fury upon Typhon, a storm of lightning and elemental forces that converged with devastating precision. The skies erupted in a symphony of thunder, and the ground trembled as the battle reached its zenith. Yet, Typhon was not defeated easily. With a roar that shook the heavens, he unleashed a final surge of power, summoning the very elements to his aid. The earth beneath Zeus's feet cracked and fissured, and the skies darkened further, swirling with ominous clouds. It was a desperate move, a last-ditch effort to reclaim his dominance. But Zeus, fueled by the unity of his fellow gods and the strength of his resolve, stood firm. He raised his thunderbolt high, channeling all the energy of the gods into a single devastating strike. "By the power of Olympus, I command you to fall," he bellowed, his voice echoing across the battlefield. With a blinding flash, the thunderbolt descended upon Typhon, a cataclysmic explosion of light and power that illuminated the darkened skies. The impact sent shockwaves rippling through the earth, and for a moment, time itself seemed to stand still. Typhon roared in anguish, his forms twisting and contorting as the divine energy engulfed him. In that moment of chaos, Zeus felt the weight of the world upon his shoulders, the burden of leadership and the responsibility of protecting the realm. He knew that this battle was not just for his own survival, but for the future of the gods and humanity. With every ounce of strength he possessed, he pressed forward, determined to vanquish the darkness that threatened to consume them all. As the dust settled, the echoes of the battle faded into silence. Zeus stood victorious, his thunderbolt raised high, the embodiment of divine power and resilience. Typhon lay defeated, his monstrous form dissipating into the ether, a reminder of the chaos that had once threatened to engulf the world. The gods erupted in cheers, their voices ringing out in celebration as they gathered around their king, their spirits lifted by the triumph over adversity. But the victory came with a heavy price. The battlefield was scarred, a testament to the intensity of the conflict that had unfolded. The gods surveyed the destruction, the remnants of their fallen comrades lingering in their hearts. They knew that the battle against chaos would never truly end, that the forces of darkness would always seek to rise again. Yet, in that moment, they found solace in their unity and the strength they had discovered within themselves. Zeus, though weary from the battle, felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. He had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, not just through his own power but through the bonds he had forged with his fellow gods. The battle against Typhon had been a crucible, a test of their strength and resolve, and they had emerged stronger together. As the sun rose over the horizon, casting a warm glow upon the battlefield, Zeus looked out at the world before him. He knew that challenges would continue to arise, but with the unity of the gods and the lessons learned from their epic conflict, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The legacy of their battle against Typhon would echo through the ages, a reminder of the strength found in unity and the enduring spirit of the gods. And so, the tale of Zeus and Typhon became etched in the annals of mythology, a story of courage, resilience, and the eternal struggle between order and chaos. It served as a reminder to all who heard it that even in the face of overwhelming darkness, the light of unity and strength could prevail, illuminating the path forward for generations to come.